This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. This year, Ohio Farm Bureau is going to select individuals to take part in our AgriPOWER program, a leadership and advocacy development program designed for farmers and agribusiness professionals to help them develop the skills necessary to become effective leaders and advocates for Ohio's #1 industry. Joining us this week, two graduates of Class 13 earlier this year, Emily Buehler of Columbus and Renee Hamilton of Mechanicsburg. Good to see you guys. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ty.
Before we get into your involvement with AgriPOWER and your experience over the last year, let's learn about you. So, Renee, we'll start with you. Tell us about yourself and your involvement in Ohio Ag.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Renee Hamilton, and I'm out of Champaign County, Mechanicsburg, Ohio. Professionally, I work at Select Sires Incorporated in the beef department and also in the talent development department. At home, my boyfriend and I own and operate Violet View Farms, where we have 80 head of commercial cows that are almost done calving for the season. And we also have a produce and pumpkin patch as well. So that kind of starts to gear up towards the end of the year into the fall. So we stay pretty busy.
Yeah, never a dull moment. Emily, tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm Emily Buehler. I am a poultry sales account executive with Elanco Animal Health. I am a recent transplant to Shelby County, Ohio. So I live around the Jackson Center area. My husband is a large animal veterinarian in the area, and we just purchased our first farm, if that's what you call it. So we have 5 acres and 3 acres of tillable ground. So we have a Schedule F for our wheat production this year. So we are excited to officially be farmers, at least in our eyes, that's what we're going to call it. But we are excited to kind of take our professional life and be involved in the agricultural industry, but also have that personally at home as well.
That's very exciting for you to take that leap and become more and more involved in this industry. And AgriPOWER does that too, right? It gets you really immersed into agriculture here in Ohio, but also across the country. And part of what you did last year was media training. So if you don't do well during the podcast, it's all on me. I take full responsibility, but I know both of you and you're going to do very, very well. And appreciate you taking the time to share your experience. And let's get into AgriPOWER. And, you know, Renee, why did you decide to get involved over the last year with this program?
Yeah, so I was a recent graduate from the Ohio State University, and I was just kind of looking to find better ways to grow myself professionally after getting a formal education, but I kind of wanted to get more involved in Ohio agriculture and kind of see what else was out there. So I saw the Ohio AgriPOWER opportunity come up, and I thought it sounded very interesting. And I didn't know very much about the policy side of things and was interested in learning that. And then also furthering my communication skills to kind of use at home on the farm as well to market to our local communities, which is where most of our products from our farm go to. So I just thought it would be a great opportunity to learn more about myself, Ohio Ag, and kind of how to blend all of that into being an advocate for agriculture as well.
Emily, what enticed you to join AgriPOWER?
Absolutely. So for me, it was during high school and during college, it was really easy to be involved in the industry, to be involved in 4-H and FFA and different clubs and organizations during my time at Ohio State. But I found that after graduation, I kind of came out into the real world and moved around a little bit. I spent some time in Wisconsin, some time in Arkansas. And by the time I got back to Ohio, it felt like COVID hit. So it was one of those things that I very much alienated myself to. I worked and I came home, and that was about all that I did every day. And even though I was employed in the agricultural industry, I wasn't involved. So AgriPOWER was one of those opportunities that I saw for someone kind of in that in-between phase where I was out of college, but I wasn't quite fully immersed in what my after college life was going to look like. So AgriPOWER was that first opportunity for me to jump in and get involved. And it was actually, I was working at Farm Credit Mid-America at the time, and my boss approached me about the opportunity. And I'm really grateful she did. So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been able to participate.
I don't want to call it a crash course because it does go by quickly, but there's so many things that you get to do in this program. You mentioned, Renee, the policy aspect. There's leadership development as part of this curriculum as well. Media relations and working with the media and how to share your message about agriculture and how to share agriculture's message to the general public. As you look back over the last year, Emily, what were some of the highlights of AgriPOWER Class 13?
Absolutely. So for me, I love personal development. It was one thing that I was really passionate about growing up. And then again, once I hit that professional life, it was one of those things that becoming narrow-minded on the career that you're in, I kind of lost that. So being able to participate in the Strength Finders exam and to go through what our change assessment is, some of those personal development pieces that I'd never done before, it was good to kind of learn more about myself and figure out too how I can implement that into my daily life. I'm one of those things. I make my husband do all of the things that we did in AgriPOWER because it helped me better my marriage and understand how the two of us can interact, kind of being newlyweds, figure out how we can kind of do our life together based on some of those. But also, I'd say just the diverse portions of agriculture that you forget about. When you're in your career, you're so narrow-minded that you forget about everything around you. So kind of opening my eyes again and remembering just how big this industry, how wide this industry is, it was one of the biggest takeaways that I had.
Renee, how about you?
I have to echo everything Emily said. I too am very interested in personal development and think it was very neat. And I use what I learned in that first session with all the leadership aspects every day in my job. And I have actually been able to transform my job and move into a new position because of some of those things that I have learned in that first session. But beyond that, I just, again, like Emily said, learning about the diversity of Ohio agriculture and then being able to go to Texas and learn more about, kind of how they do. I know more about cotton farming than I ever thought I would know, because it's not something we do here in Ohio, but it's a really big part of the area of Texas we went to. So that was very interesting to learn about. And just learning about the policy. I've always been interested in learning more about that and kind of how that affects agriculture, but I never knew how I can make a difference in that. And so learning about some of the recent things that have come up, and while we were in DC, there were some pretty big topics going on, and getting to be able to listen to our county presidents and kind of their take on it, as well as some higher level leaders in Farm Bureau and kind of how they felt about it as well. And then ultimately talking to our representatives, local representatives in Ohio. That really, I learned a lot out of that opportunity and am excited to continue being involved in my county and working with our county officials on kind of how to work on some of those policies as well.
That's Renee Hamilton of Mechanicsburg joining us on this week's podcast, along with Emily Bueller of Columbus, both graduates of the most recent Class 13 of AgriPOWER from Ohio Farm Bureau. Applications are now being taken for Class 14. We'll tell you more about how to apply by that August 1st deadline in a bit. Renee, you mentioned something that caught my ear. You talked about some things that you learned during your time at AgriPOWER that you're using in your career now. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit and talk about some of the things that you now have in your back pocket thanks to AgriPOWER?
Yeah. So when I started at Select Sires, I worked in just simply the beef department, and did a lot of administrative things. And as we went through that first session in Columbus, regarding the strength finders and our change assessment and emotional intelligence and everything else that we learned in that session, we had also talked about our community service project and kind of how to build stronger communities. And I was able to bring that back here to Select Sires and kind of continue to build our community here and make sure that our company culture was where it needed to be. And by the time I graduated AgriPOWER, I was able to kind of transition my role a little bit and move into our building talent development team. And now there are 3 of us on the team. But we kind of helped start that, and I get to work with those ladies and get to help coordinate our orientations and all kinds of things that are, employee based. So I've been able to take a lot of what I learned in AgriPOWER and kind of how to build stronger communities and how to, really immerse yourself into personal development and bring that here and build our community here. So it's been a great opportunity. And if it weren't for AgriPOWER, I wouldn't have kind of found another passion in my career.
Emily, that's maybe one of the hurdles of people wanting to get involved is it does take a little bit of time out of your schedule, and it takes some time out of your personal life and your professional life to be able to go through this course. But what Renee just said, the value that she brought back from being part of AgriPOWER to her organization, I think organizations see that, don't they? When you asked about taking the time to do this, they saw the value in you developing professionally, personally, and leadership qualities that can really take you to the next level in your career, but also take that organization to the next level as well.
Absolutely. For me, I changed jobs in the middle of AgriPOWER. It was one of those things I was pretty nervous about just because I knew the commitment and the time that it took. And I was a little nervous to jump into a new career during it. However, when I approached my new boss, my now boss at Elanco, about the opportunity, he said, absolutely. We wouldn't have hired you if it weren't for things like that you were involved with. So it was nice to have that support. And I feel like most people in this industry are able to support us in that way. And this is something that they see as a positive. They saw Farm Bureau as a whole as a positive. I work with coworkers across the country, and one of my coworkers in California was working with California Farm Bureau on a very similar program there. So it was nice to be able to have that recognition and the understanding and appreciation that Farm Bureau brings. So employers really appreciate that as well. And I think it makes us better employees because of participating in AgriPOWER.
What is something that you've improved on in your professional life thanks to AgriPOWER?
For me, it was very much understanding myself. One of the big things that we did was a change assessment. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it was interesting because when we did this change assessment, it was all about how we approach and accept change within our lives, whether that be personally or professionally. And in this room of participants at AgriPOWER, I was the opposite scale of the spectrum as everybody else in the room. It was one of those things that I felt in my personal and professional life, but I'd never recognized or understood how to handle that. So understanding that I do have a very different personality when it comes to that, and learning how to both listen and adapt to that when I'm in the professional setting, I think it's really helped me understand my coworkers better.
One of the things I've noticed through all these AgriPOWER classes is how close the class gets, right? You have now relationships that could last the rest of your life thanks to your AgriPOWER classmates and those friendships and relationships you built over the last few months through AgriPOWER. If someone is thinking about joining, maybe on the fence, how would you push them over and get them to apply? Renee, we'll start with you.
I would just say take the risk. I feel like when it comes to personal development, there's never something that's too risky to do. When it comes to something like this, you will make friends and connections that you never knew you were going to make. Our class still has a group chat that we were just texting in over the weekend. There's others, that we text or Snapchat all the time and keep in touch. And then beyond just those connections, you meet people within the Ohio Farm Bureau that are, a resource for you to go to if something comes up. We learned a lot about solar in Ohio and kind of the different perspectives of that. And now we, have people that we can go to if that is something that comes into our backyard that we maybe want more information on. And then just the diversity and the different farmers that we got to meet throughout Ohio. We have those connections of if you want to start a Christmas tree farm. Well, we visited one of those and we could call somebody and be like, how did you do it? What would you tell us to do? Maybe we can get past some of those initial learning curves. So I would just say you're going to make connections that you never thought you may need or may want to have.
Emily, your elevator speech for AgriPOWER.
Ooh, going all the way back to first session when we practiced this. But AgriPOWER it's an advanced leadership program, and it's so much more than that too, though. It's a way to connect with industry representatives, learn more about the industry. You're connecting with your fellow classmates and able to learn. Personally, I did not grow up with row crops. I have absolute no background to it. So one of our other classmates grew up on a row crop operation, and I went out and was able to ride in a combine this fall, which was something that I'd never experienced before. And it was all just because of a classmate that we were able to make that connection and experience that portion of the industry that I never saw. So if anyone's hesitant about joining, I know I was, because I wasn't really involved in Farm Bureau before that. I was nervous. I didn't know whether that was something that I had to be extremely involved with. Now, after AgriPOWER, I'm excited to get involved with my county and at the state level, any opportunities that I can. But take that risk, jump in and get involved. Absolutely join AgriPOWER.
Emily Bueller of Columbus, Renee Hamilton of Mechanicsburg, two graduates of AgriPOWER's Class 13. Really appreciate you guys taking time to be on the podcast, talk about your experience, and hopefully get others to think about applying for AgriPOWER Class 14. Applications are now being accepted. We'll put the link to that application process on this podcast, but if you're watching the video and can't really click anything right now, it's really easy to go to ohiofarmbureau.org and just search AgriPOWER. You'll get all the information you need there as well. Ladies, great to see you. From a media relations and spokesperson standpoint, you both passed with flying colors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ty.
Thanks to great training from Ty.
Yes.
Find out how Nationwide Agribusiness can help you grow your business. Get to know the people with the experience and knowledge to help you. Whether you are looking to protect your farm or ranch from the ground up, or need someone who understands your changing commercial ag needs. Find out how to better manage the risks of your ag business, or how quickly you can get back to business. Learn how you can protect your next with Nationwide on your side.
Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. Balancing resources to better deliver local member services and competition for employee recruitment and retention have created some challenges for county farm bureaus in recent years. To find solutions, 8 Northwest Ohio farm bureaus started pilot projects last year to discover new ways to deliver value to their members. As that project continues, 12 more counties in the northwest part of the state are part of a new pilot project with similar goals, but a slightly different approach. Joining us is the Vice President of Membership with Ohio Farm Bureau, Paul Lyons. Paul, great to see you.
Good to see you as well, Ty. Thanks for the invitation.
As I mentioned, we have a lot going on in Northwest Ohio with this initial pilot project. Before we talk about the new project, can you kind of recap the first project and maybe some of the early takeaways we're seeing there?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity again to talk about this. Our service delivery pilot 1, as we call it today, is doing some really good things. We've some of the early things that we've learned so far is boots on the ground matter. So that's one of the things that we thought was a big deal in terms of engaging members as we do membership work, we do programmatic work, whatever that work might be, as we lead with value. The boots on the ground thing seems to be working, or at least that's I'm characterizing as boots on the ground, but it's really that increase in member engagement, community engagement that has led to a lot of opportunities, if you will, whether that's with some of our group members, whether that's with individual members, et cetera. But that's been one of the biggest takeaways so far, that really the boots on the ground is really working.
I mentioned this second pilot project, similar goals, but a little different approach. What are some of the similarities and differences between these two projects as the second one gets rolling?
Yeah, the what's exactly the same is our 4 goals, which again is we want to lead with value first before we ask someone to join. We're trying to find new ways to acquire and retain members. I talked about engagement. How do we increase and provide a more individualized experience for members, and then try a different staff structure. So the goals are exactly the same. The biggest difference is that how we're delivering value through our staff. So in pilot 1, all of those staff folks are now OFBF employees. We rearranged some of their duties to make it more, I guess, specialized. And then over in the new pilot, we still have 4 county areas, but each one of those organization directors are going to have their own specialty. But the county staff is going to be exactly the same as what we've had in the past. So in one case, we have someone that's going to work on policy and trends, one person that's going to work on business solutions, which is primarily work with our #1 partner Nationwide. And then the other one is going to work on opportunities for growth. And we've put that in a category called, leader development is kind of where we're headed with pilot 2.
I know we've had focus groups and roundtables. We've talked to members and county board leaders about where they want to see their organization go. That's where a lot of the ideas for pilot #1 came from. Where do the ideas from this new project come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it really is a spin-off of that. Certainly a couple different areas where we actually decided to head this direction. One is a few years ago, we did a county feasibility study, which much of the stuff that's in pilot 1 came about, but then there was also some other ideas about specialization and how we could maybe execute on that. But ultimately, Also, our state board members, they've talked a lot about how could we keep the 4-county unit together, but specialize amongst a larger area. So that's the 3 primary places that has driven this. But and again, as we've been almost a year now into pilot 1, some of those challenges are around, managing a larger area and staff being able to do that with more county boards and so on and so forth. So this is just another opportunity to kind of using the same goals, if you will, trying to test a new staff structure for it.
I want to recognize those ODs on their new promotions. If you would kind of break it down as to who those ODs are and what their new roles might entail moving forward.
Yeah, so three organization directors, again, 12-county block, keeping them in four counties. Roy Norman, who's senior organization director in Defiance, Fulton, Henry, and Williams County. But he will be adding a specialty, and he's going to be our policy specialist. He has a passion for policy, so he will be our policy specialist. Jill Smith, who's been the organization director in Auglaize, Logan, Mercer, and Shelby County. She's getting promoted to senior organization director, and then she will have this leader development specialist. And then finally, one of our newest ODs, Samantha Bloom, who is serving Allen, Paulding, Putnam, and Van Wert. Has a little background also in insurance, will be our business solutions specialist. And these are all effective right now, became effective April 1. So.
Yeah, this pilot project now, as you mentioned, just a little over a month old, I guess you would say, as it continues to roll out. As members start to see these changes, what do you expect them to see in the coming weeks, months?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and our hope is that they are going to see us leading with value again a little bit more than we've had in the past. And then, in addition to that, as we implement these new programs and activities throughout the region throughout those 12 county areas, we expect that members are going to have a little more opportunity to engage a little bit differently than in the past. And then the other thing they're going to notice is they're going to see different people along the way. So in some cases, these organization directors will act as official experts and be possibly in those other counties. In other cases, they will be helping the ODs behind the scenes to be able to execute on programs where their strengths lie. So our hope is that over this 12 county area, we'll have a little bit more unified approach in terms of our, shaping policy, advancing those on-farm business solutions, providing opportunities for growth, and then ultimately also leveraging trends.
We will have more information about these new pilot projects in Northwest Ohio as we update you online at ohiofarmbureau.org in the coming months and weeks. Paul Lyons, Vice President of Membership with Ohio Farm Bureau. A lot going on in your part of the shop, but we appreciate all you do, and I know our members will appreciate this organization's changes moving forward as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about these new opportunities that we have out there.